Okay, this slide is going to be almost like a kind of a review of what we did before. Again, just with a little bit, I guess, more words here, more a sense of direction. Okay, so again, remember we have two circuits. We have the pulmonary circuit and we have the systemic circuits. Okay, so let's start this. Let's go through each of one of these phases. Okay, so everything starts at the heart. Okay, so here. So let's follow these steps. Let's go with the steps as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Actually, we'll start with 11, and we see how blood is going to be traveling throughout our circulatory system. Okay, so everything starts at the vena cava. In this case, the superior vena cava. It's going to be dropping blood into the. We'll start here, 11, into the right atrium. Okay, then blood is going to flow from the right atrium. It's going to go to the right ventricle. Okay, from there is going to go to the pulmonary trunk. Okay, it's going to go into the pulmonary arteries. Okay, remember this is the right side of the heart. Oxygen, poor blood travels here, and this is a pulmonary artery, and it's blue. Why is it blue? Because it's carrying oxygen, poor blood, and it's going to go to the lungs. Okay, either or. So pulmonary artery here is a pulmonary artery as well. Okay, you have two. And the way they're showing you here, I mean, it's because they want to show you the whole thing. But if it's too confusing, just stick to what I'm showing you. Okay. Okay, and after that, what happens? Well, here the blood suddenly becomes purple and then red. What does that mean? Well, if the blood is if oxygen poor blood goes to the lungs, what happens in the lungs? Hey, we're gonna get some oxygen. Okay, here's what we obtain oxygen, obtain O2. Oxygen now is going to be able to come back via the pulmonary vein. Pulmonary vein here is red. That means it's carrying oxygen-rich blood, right? But it's a vein, doesn't matter. What matters is the direction of the blood, right? The direction the blood is traveling. So it's a vein because blood is being traveling towards the heart. Okay, then it's going to go into the left atrium. Blood then travels into the left atrium, then into the left ventricle, and then it's going to go, number 6 is going to go into the aorta. From the aorta, it's going to go into your systemic circuit, and like I told you early on, systemic circuit is going to be either the capillaries of the head and your limbs, or like your arms, your chest, your head, okay? But also involves the capillaries in the abdominal organs, like your stomach, okay, digestive system, and your legs and your toes, okay? So the rest of the body. That's why I call it the rest of the body, okay? And it's going to go both ways. So 7 and 8, I don't know why we have 7 and 8. I would say 7 and 7 because technically it's going to go all over the place, okay? The blood can either go up here or it can go down here, okay? But it's still going to go in one direction, okay? Then what happens? Well, the blood is going to be coming back, right? It's going to go to your, let's follow here in the head really quick, okay? Blood, oxygen-rich blood, travels in arteries. It goes and it bathes your tissues. And then it's going to deliver the oxygen. It's going to leave the oxygen there. And it's going to come back. Oxygen poor blood now, right? Because it dumped the oxygen to the tissues. Now, oxygen poor blood is going to travel, okay, in veins because, again, now veins are carrying oxygen poor blood. And that's okay. There are veins because they carry blood towards the heart, okay? In this case, the superior vena cava. In the case of your toes, same thing, okay? We have oxygen-rich blood here. It gets a little purple here. That means because there's exchange, we're dropping off oxygen, and blood is coming back as oxygen-poor blood now. Okay, they're oxygen-poor blood, and it's gonna travel via the inferior vena cava. Okay, the inferior vena cava, and whether it comes from the inferior vena cava or whether it comes from the superior vena cava, guess where blood is going to be arriving to? Here, the right atrium. And then again, right ventricle, pulmonary trunk, pulmonary artery, lungs, pulmonary vein, left atrium, left ventricle, aorta, either to your feet, either to your head, superior vena cava or inferior vena cava, all the way back to your heart, to the right atrium. Simple as that. Okay, this is something called a cardiac cycle, and this is a very, very basic and very actually this picture is going to be very basic, very general. Okay, so this is what happens when your heart is pumping, and all I'm going to do is I'm just going to read through this. Okay, I'm going to read through this and explain it. Okay, atrial and ventricular diastole. When you see diastole, you're going to think about relaxation of the heart, relaxation of the ventricles. Just relax, relaxation. There we go. Okay, both the atria and the ventricle are relaxed. Okay, they're not adding any pressure. What happens here? Well, what happens in number one when both the atria and the ventricles are relaxed? Well, during this phase, blood returns from the large veins, okay, from the large veins, either the vena cavas here or the pulmonary veins over here, okay, and they're gonna flow, and blood is gonna flow into the atria and then into the ventricles, okay, through the AV valves. So here I think the word is passively, okay. There's no pressure, okay. Everything is flowing freely, okay. Number two, what's gonna happen is whatever blood is left here and here, now it has to be pushed, okay. It has to have to add some pressure to make sure it goes to the ventricles. So atrial systole, if diastole is relaxation, systole is, guess what? Contraction. When it's contracted, when the when the when the heart or the chamber, it's contracting, the muscle is contracting. Okay, the opposite of relaxed. Okay, when the chamber contracts, it's said to be in systole. Okay, so contraction, and then the ventricle, however, is still relaxed. Make sure you understand that. Okay, the atria is contracting. That means we're adding some pressure into the blood because we want to be able to get all the stuff as much as possible into the ventricle. Okay, but the ventricle is still relaxed. It's still chilling. Okay, a brief period of atrial contraction, that's what it means, atrial contraction, then forces all blood remaining in the atria into the ventricles. That's necessary. Now, the third part of the phase. Here, the ventricular systole. So now the ventricle contracts and the atria chills, okay, relaxes. During this phase, the remainder of the cycle, ventricular contraction, okay, the ventricles, okay, both ventricles are contracting. They're adding a lot of pressure. It's pumping blood into the large arteries through the semilunar valves, okay? So ventricles are contracting, pushing the blood to the aorta or into the pulmonary trunk, okay? And then pulmonary arteries. Does that make sense? Remember this. This is called the cardiac cycle. It's very important. This is a very general cardiac type of cycle. Not a lot of detail, but these are the basic steps. And make sure you understand. Make sure you understand that you understand what systole means, what diastole means. Okay, and what's the purpose of it? Again, the purpose of systole is to relax, because imagine if these ventricles here are relaxed, that means they're receiving blood, right? But when the ventricles are going to contract, it's so much force we add and so much pressure that is pushing the blood outwards, like you see over here. Okay, so that's what's very important. When we need to get rid of blood from the chambers have to contract. Okay, and then they relax. Okay, I think you've seen this before. It's an EKG or ECG. It's kind of the electrical activity of your heart. So before your muscles can contract, because remember, your heart is made of muscles. It's a muscle, right? It's made of muscle. It has muscle cells. It has but anyway, but these cells, in order to get the signal to contract, well, they need a signal. Okay, they can't just contract by themselves. They have to have a signal, and this signal comes from something called pacemaker cells. Let me make sure you understand this. This part has nothing to do with blood, okay? Has nothing to do with pumping. Well, it kind of has to do with pumping, but it doesn't have to do with the blood or anything. This has to do with electrical impulses in your heart. That's what it has to do. Electrical impulses in your heart. Okay? So we have pacemaker cells. Pacemaker cells are gonna set the rate of beating. Believe it or not, your heart doesn't need any. I mean, it does need some help from your nervous system. It does, but by itself, your heart, okay, these pacemaker cells are going to set that rate of beating, okay. It does it by itself. It doesn't need your brain to beat. Now it does need it needs other stimuli to increase your heartbeat, yeah, or to decrease it, yeah, absolutely. But the basic rhythm of your heart is determined by, guess what? Pacemaker cells. Okay. Where are these pacemaker cells? We're going to be in the sinoatrial node. We don't need to know sinoatrial, but we will know them as SA node. Everything starts here, guys. Here's where we have a bunch of cells are going to be sending signals, okay? Cells going to be sending electrical signals to other cells so they can contract. Think of it like this. If I say stand up and then sit down, well, you're not going to stand up and sit down unless I tell you to, right? So think of this as me telling you the electrical signal, and then you standing and sitting as the action, okay, as the contraction part. Okay, so SA node is usually called a pacemaker. It has a bunch of, guess what? It has a bunch of pacemaker cells. And it's going to send a signal, okay, to the AV node. Okay, so SA node spread through the atria. The signals are going to be spreading from the SA node through the atria. Signals are going to be delayed at the AV node. It's going to be here. It's going to be delayed for a little bit. Okay, and then the signal is going to go over here. This part is going to be called, maybe I should do this. And I keep telling you guys, why is the heart a male? Okay, why is it such a male looking thing, right? Why is it considered male? Because it's called because of this thing. It's called the bundle of his. You see, it's not the bundle of hers, it's the bundle of his. Okay, that was a joke. Anyway, the point of the fact is, what is not a joke is this part here is called the bundle of his. Okay, and then the bundle of his is gonna kind of divide into two branches. We call this the two bundle branches, which are gonna pass the signals to the heart apex. The heart apex is over here, the bottom of the heart. Okay, and the signal is then gonna go down the branches. Okay, there's a right and a left. And then finally the signals are gonna spread out through the ventricles via the Purkinje fibers. Okay, what do I expect you to know? I expect you to know the sequence, okay, from SA node to AV node to bundle branches, or I'm sorry, to bundle of his, bundle branches, and then Purkinje fibers. And remember that these are going to be electrical impulses. Once, as you can see here, let me use my little hand. You can see here, once the impulse goes down, down, okay, and then it goes up. Once the impulse, once the message has been sent, then we can see the contraction. Okay, it's always a signal, then the contraction. Okay,